This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Chen Chuanzhou's pupils shrank and he said in a deep voice, "Young Emperor Hulian, you're still thinking of breaking through at this point? Stop dreaming." He raised his large sword high, flew down, and slashed. The two of them had been suppressed by the power of the unaging mountain in the core space and had been unable to move. When the law of winter had appeared, they had almost died. If Yifan had not sent the unaging mountain flying, he would have died. After that, he was extremely weak and couldn't rush out. Only after he recovered his strength did he find an opportunity to escape. Bang! Chen Chuanzhou's large sword directly slashed at the barrier around Xiaohuang Haolian. A powerful spiritual pressure burst forth, but it could not advance in the slightest. What's going on? What kind of barrier was this? How can you still have such a powerful defense? Chen Chuanzhou's eyes widened in shock and disbelief as he asked repeatedly. Young Emperor Haolian formed a seal with one hand and used the one chi creation skill. The spiritual essence of the divine tree around him began to be absorbed into his body. His other hand formed the Vajra seal, which emitted a green light. Not only was the defensive barrier not destroyed by the sword, but it also became stronger. Feng Yi's pupils shrank and he said coldly, "What a smart kid." He extracted the essence of the divine tree directly. Part of it was for his own use, and the other part was used to form seals to set up a defense. Chen Chuanzhou, you can't break this Vajra barrier without fully recovering your power. Moreover, it seems that Hao Lian's comprehension of the rules is still not enough. He wants to use the spiritual tree's essence to supplement it and break through the threshold of a martial supreme in one fell swoop before supplementing his martial essence. Feng Yi's face turned cold as he walked down from the sky and came to the Vajra barrier. He grinned and said, "However, when the laws are condensed and the Emperor Qi is born, it will benefit me. Young Emperor Hao Lian, thank you for the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens." 5 different colored lights of the 5 elements shot out from his 5 fingers and landed on the Vajra barrier. He slowly inserted his 5 fingers into it. The golden light of Emperor Qi on young Emperor Haolian's body gradually left his body and was absorbed into his fief. Damn it! Humph! Young Emperor Haolian snorted angrily. His left hand, which had formed a seal, changed its form and clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, punching toward the claw. He changed his hand's seal, and the Vajra barrier immediately disappeared. The fief lord was shocked when he felt the power of that punch. The laws around him condensed, and there was a golden light shining on it. He retreated in shock and said in fear, "This Kasaya is the Vajra fist Kasaya." The surrounding power gathered under the wind of the fist, and the fist broke through the void. Boom boom boom. Although Feng Yi retreated very quickly, his internal organs were still shaken by the power of the punch. He said in horror, "Chen Chuanzhou is about to advance. It'll be too late if we don't suppress him." Chen Chuanzhou also saw that the situation was not good. With a loud shout, he raised his sword and slashed. His heavenly ancient bronze sword was also an 8th tier profound weapon, so when it was used, it was full of vigor and might. It moved in a wide and open manner, taking the same path as the Vajra fist, which was unparalleled in its ferocity. Once the sword chi rose, it immediately suppressed the fist light. In a few breaths, the two of them had made countless moves, and they were fiercely fighting. Feng Yi shouted in surprise, his power is already at a critical point. You must suppress his martial arts domain. Don't let him have time to absorb the spiritual essence of the Tree of God or comprehend the rules. Otherwise, he may break through at any time. You will no longer be his opponent. Chen Chuanzhou was shocked. Feng Yi was a martial emperor's existence, so he naturally understood the key to advancing. Upon hearing this, he unleashed all his trump cards and firmly suppressed Xiaohuang Haolian, not giving him any chance to escape. Xiaohuang Haolian was also shocked and furious. He could feel that he was about to break through, but he could not grasp the main point. He had originally wanted to rely on the spiritual tree's essence energy to force a breakthrough, but now it seemed that there was no hope. Although the two of them were both unparalleled and domineering, there was a huge difference in their moves. Chen Chuanzhou's swordsmanship was ever-changing. Each of his moves was wide and open, giving him the aura of a grandmaster. On the other hand, Xiao Huanghalian made people not know whether to laugh or cry. He only used the Vajra fist. No matter how you changed, he would respond to all changes with the same technique. He would never get tired of using it. Feng Yi did not pay much attention to it at first, but the more he watched, the more shocked he became. He found that the martial essence contained in Halian Xiaowang's Vajra punch was far stronger than that of Chen Chuanzhou's. Sometimes, even he could not see through the power in the punch. It was the same move, but it contained all the changes. One move breaks all techniques. Feng Yi's heart suddenly sank. In martial arts, there was only the saying of one power defeating 10. However, he had also heard that when one reached the peak of martial arts, or when one's comprehension of martial essence reached an extremely high level, any move that was performed would contain the supreme martial essence. Every frown, every smile, every action, and every movement were filled with the regulations of heaven and earth. At that time, all martial arts techniques in the world would pale in comparison, unable to compare to a casual punch or palm. This realm was called breaking all techniques with one move. Of course, it was impossible for young Emperor Hao Lian to have that kind of strength. However, the situation in front of him was extremely similar to the legendary, one move breaks all techniques. This made him extremely nervous. When he thought about how this person's master was also an extraordinary existence, he became even more uncertain. He secretly made up his mind to suppress this person and wait until both sides were injured before he made a move. At this moment, the divine tree had already grown to a height of 1,000 feet and was still growing. The world energy it exuded was so dense that it was unbelievable. Everyone's injuries were recovering at an extremely fast speed. Even Chen Chuanzhou and Halian Xiaohuang felt full of energy after fighting to the death. The energy that they had lost was quickly replenished. Beside the tree, Shang's Taiji sky ceiling mark had also finally run out of energy and disappeared. Shang's eyes and the two corners of his forehead returned to their normal gray color. His body shrunk rapidly, as if all his energy had been sucked out of him. He fell from the sky. Not only was his power completely depleted, but the divine tree had also inserted itself into the ground to grow. All the spiritual qi had started to leak out, which was a huge blow to him. Lord Sheng. Yi rushed up and held Sheng, gently landing on the ground. Sheng grabbed Yi's arm and said with a pale face, "Hurry up and snatch the spiritual tree essence, Qianqian. Don't worry about me." After saying that, he quickly sat down cross-legged and began to regulate his breathing. He also began to absorb the spirit qi of the divine tree. The period of weakness after demonic transformation was extremely long, and he wouldn't be able to use his vital qi for a few months. However, at this moment, storing more power would allow him to recover faster. Li was as paralyzed as him. She staggered over from a distance and sat beside Sheng, adjusting their breathing together. Yi shouted at Yu, who was not far away, "You guys protect Lord Sheng and Li, I'll go get the essence of the Tree of God." He spread his bat-like wings, and his agile body flickered a few times, and he rushed thousands of feet high. He slashed in the air with his finger sword, cutting the big tree that was still growing. His 5 fingers directly stabbed into the tree's arms, tearing it apart. The divine tree's energy essence had already traveled to every part of the big tree's meridians, and as it continued to grow, it had become very thin. Yi did not have a better idea, so he could only tear the tree apart in large chunks and store them in his storage ring. He would refine them in the future. After being sealed by the Taiji sky sealing seal, the Yuan Qi in Qing's body was still in a frozen state. He stood on a huge tree branch with an ashen face and looked at everything coldly, speeding up the recovery of his energy. You go and collect the divine tree as well. Leave this to me." Fu gripped his hatchet tightly and looked at Feng Yi in the distance with fear. He said, "The spiritual tree's essence is of utmost importance to us. Every bit of it counts." Yu also didn't hesitate. Having just recovered a lot of strength, he also scuttled into the air and began to use his tail light sword to cut open the big tree and grab a large amount of it. There was also Tang Jia. Although he had lost the vermilion bird saber, under this shocking spiritual energy, not only did his injuries all recover, but he also seemed to have advanced to a higher level. He was overjoyed, and quickly sat down cross-legged near Sheng, taking the opportunity to break through the martial honor threshold. If he could break through this major realm, he would have made up for the losses he had suffered in the demon plane. Although he would be heavily punished if he lost the vermilion bird saber, the 4-level Chamber of Commerce had money, so he placed more importance on improving his cultivation. How can I miss out on something good? A familiar voice rang out in the air. It was Yunxiao. He was overjoyed to see the tree's essence. He mimicked you, took out a weapon, and slashed at the tree. Bang! The 6th-tier profound weapon in his hand had actually broken into two upon contact with the light from the divine tree. This buy-in. Yunxiao was taken aback. He did not expect the divine tree to be so hard when he saw you, and he easily cut the tree open and put it into their pockets. Humph. Qingzhu snorted and looked at him coldly. A mere 6th-tier profound armament wants to cut open my main body's core? Overestimating your own ability. Yunxiao narrowed his eyes and pointed his middle finger at him. Your original body has already been snatched away, and you still have the face to mock me? You have a good attitude, I admire you. You coward. Qingzhu was so angry that it almost couldn't recover. Its face turned purple, and it snorted heavily before turning its head away, ignoring him. Now that the main body had appeared and was destroyed to such an extent, it could no longer be preserved. There was no such thing as an eternal existence in this world. Even for someone like him who had lived for countless years, at this moment, as he watched his original self being gradually taken away, those familiar body parts suddenly became a little dazed. The heart that was originally extremely reluctant to part with him also gradually calmed down. Li Yunxiao. What are you doing? Suddenly, the roar of you came. Yunxiao was holding a large piece of divine tree and putting it into his ring. When he found that he could not cut the divine tree open at all, he had the idea of snatching it and stealing the fruit of Yu's labor. Go to hell. The 11th sword. Furious, Yu thrust his sword at Yunxiao. Yunxiao laughed as he stepped on the divine tree and kept dodging. He didn't have a 9th-tier profound armament in his hands, so if he didn't snatch it, there was no other way. Otherwise, in his current condition, he wouldn't take the initiative to attract you. You had chased Yunxiao for most of the day, but it was to no avail. The divine tree's main body had been split open by him, which was exactly what Yunxiao wanted. Although he didn't want to provoke you, he wasn't afraid of him. Besides, it was related to the divine tree's essence, which would be of great benefit to both the divine realm tablet and his own cultivation. After chasing for a while, Yu's eyes were filled with anger and hatred. On this trip to the demon land, the members of the demon clan had suffered heavy losses. Not only did the demon die in battle, the armillary sphere was damaged, and everyone was seriously injured. Now, they finally had a little bit of sweetness, which they had fought for with their lives, but Yunxiao had caused trouble for them. If it wasn't for the fact that it was difficult to kill him under the current circumstances, he would have killed him even if he had to give up the essence of the Tree of God. Mr. Yu, I've known you for so long, but this is the first time you've helped me so much. Thank you. Yunxiao cupped his hands and thanked him from a distance, then laughed and punched at the broken branches. The branches cracked under his fist, and soon, he collected large pieces of divine trees with great joy. Mr. Yu gritted his teeth in anger and quickly collected them himself. As the divine tree continued to grow, the profound chi spread faster and faster, and the amount of profound chi contained in each unit of the divine tree became less and less. After collecting all the cracked branches, Yunxiao was vexed again, as he could not cut new divine trees. Meanwhile, Yu was already on high alert. It was no longer realistic to sneak attack. After thinking hard for a moment, Yunxiao suddenly had an idea. With a flash of light, the purple cauldron of mountain and river appeared in his hand. The first time he had used this purple cauldron was when he had fought with you. He had been chased by you, so he had helplessly thrown it out. As a result, it had absorbed all of Rain's sword light. This thing seems to be able to directly absorb attacks. Perhaps it can also absorb the pure profound qi. Why don't I try using? With the idea of trying it out, Yunxiao made a desperate attempt. He cast a few incantations that were exactly the same as the first time he used them on the cauldron, and the little bit of energy he had just recovered was drained again. The cauldron of mountain and river was sent flying out of Yunxiao's hand with a series of rumbling sounds, spinning up and down around the divine tree. Then, it began to emit a dense purple mist, which turned into 9-colored light and spread out. The 9-colored light was very intelligent. When it shone on the trunk of the tree of God, it seemed to penetrate through. From the light came the sound of bubbles. Green bubbles of all sizes slowly overflowed from the trunk that was illuminated. They kept overflowing from the big branch and flew into the cauldron of mountain and river. In the beginning, the speed at which the bubbles emerged was very slow. It was as if it was to its liking after tasting it. The 9-colored light continued to grow brighter. Then, waves of bubbles surged out continuously and were rapidly absorbed. The cauldron of mountain and river immediately gathered a large amount of essence of the tree of God to the branches near the purple cauldron. The growth of the tree became extremely slow. Sure enough, it works. Yunxiao was overjoyed. While the cauldron of mountain and river was absorbing the divine tree's essence, a large number of inscriptions were flashing on its body, each of which had a condensed rule, giving people a feeling of great power and intelligence. Fuck you, you came back to life when there's good food. You usually play dead. Yunxiao cursed a few times, his face full of joy as he stood aside and watched. Suddenly, an ice-cold killing intent broke through the air and arrived, making an ear-piercing whistling sound. Yu's face was filled with anger as he swung his sword down and said, "So it was you. The profound qi in the entire tree of God is being drained. Stop the purple cauldron immediately." Under the sword beam, Yunxiao's face flickered with a cold light. He could have dodged it, but if he did, the state of the cauldron of mountain and river would definitely be destroyed. Seeing a large amount of the divine tree's essence being seized by him, stopping for even a second would be a great loss. He made up his mind and slapped out the dynasty bell to resist the clear sky sword skill. Dang. The sword light struck the bell, and the bell trembled for a moment before being repelled. The sound waves from the collision of the two profound level weapons spread out, turning into sharp attacks that rushed towards you. All the muscles in Yunxiao's body bulged as he circulated his tyrant body to its peak, then he thrust out a palm and blocked the bell's backlash. He then formed a seal with his hands and raised the dynasty bell above his head, spinning it continuously. As for himself, he began to merge with the demonic dragon's soul. Dragon scales began to grow on his body, and he became demonic. Yunxiao was in peak condition, ready to fight at any time. He was confident that he was no match for you. However, as long as he could hold on for a few more moments, the cauldron of mountain and river would absorb more essence energy. The benefits he would obtain would be immeasurable. I'll help you. Kill this kid first. With a flash of light in the sky, Yi's figure suddenly appeared. The 10-fingered sword flashed out a dense space that covered a large area, trying to cut Yunxiao into pieces. Yunxiao's face flickered. The devil sky armor was still on Yifan's body, and his supreme tyrant body did not dare to take such an attack head-on. He hurriedly cast a spell into the dynasty bell, which expanded to several times its original size and covered him in it. Pili Pala. The bell made a sound like frying beans when it was struck by the countless attacks. Yunxiao, who was inside the ancient bell, was stimulated by the sound and felt that his ears were about to burst. He hurriedly cut off his hearing with his divine sense. "I'll handle this place. You should go and grab as many divine trees as you can. Ripple scamper." Yu roared and retreated. He made a strange seal with one hand, and an extremely strong spiritual power shot out from his body and surged toward the cauldron of mountain and river. The cauldron was a saint-tier weapon, so he didn't dare to attack it rashly. He could only use his spiritual power to stop its operation. It was effective. The 9-colored light began to dim under the interference of his spiritual power. This works too. Yu was overjoyed and muttered to himself, "Looks like that brat's control over this saint artifact is extremely weak. I'll try and see if I can take it, An unbelievable thought flashed across his mind. He continuously sent out a few secret techniques of the demon race into the cauldron of mountain and river. The cauldron of mountain and river didn't seem to reject him. It didn't show any signs of resistance either. This made you even more happy. He increased the speed of his casting. Yunxiao was taken aback as he felt the divine sense connection between him and the cauldron of mountain and river being forcibly cut off by a powerful force. His expression changed drastically. He immediately put away the dynasty bell and appeared outside. He was shocked as he ran towards the cauldron of mountain and river. "You want to take my purple cauldron? Who allowed you to be so arrogant?" Yunxiao felt that the connection was getting weaker, and in his horror, he could not care less about absorbing the divine tree's essence. It would be a real disaster if he lost the cauldron of mountain and river. Suddenly, he formed the bright jade seal with both hands. 3 golden tadpole-like characters emerged around the seal, then he slapped it hard on the purple cauldron. Boom! The purple cauldron was shaken by the seal and immediately shone brightly. A glass space appeared around it and Yu's spiritual control was cut off. Yunxiao breathed a sigh of relief, and his eyes burst with killing intent. He kept bombarding the cauldron with both hands, pushing it toward Yu. The glazed space suddenly grew larger and began to squeeze everything around it. Yu's expression changed. The moment his spirit power was cut off, he sighed in his heart. Now that he saw the glass world coming towards him, he quickly spread out his spirit power and teleported away. The glass world was an existence that could compete with Noah's ship's golden ocean. He didn't have the courage to compete with it. "Let's see where you can run to." Yunxiao's face was livid as he pushed the glazed world down toward Yu. The divine tree was thousands of feet tall and countless meters wide. The speed at which Yunxiao pushed the cauldron of mountain and river was limited, and after a few breaths, he felt that his soul power had been exhausted, and he could no longer support it. Meanwhile, Mr. Yu had also disappeared from his sight. Suddenly, Qingzhu's body flashed with lightning. The sealed Yuan Qi in its body was finally released. Its eyes flashed with ruthlessness as it looked down at Sheng through the layers of leaves, its expression changing constantly. Sheng seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head and looked at him. He smiled bitterly. "I failed in the end. Tens of thousands of years ago, just like now, I've been sitting under you and cultivating, day after day. I didn't expect that it would be like this after tens of thousands of years." Qingzhu's pupils suddenly widened, and a look of confusion flashed through them. His heart was touched by Sheng's words. After his true form was revealed, the connection between him and his original body was gradually cut off. He was no longer the eternal evergreen tree, he was only little Qing who had all the memories of the eternal evergreen tree. Scenes flashed through his mind. Over the countless years, he had witnessed countless changes in life, and in the end, he had obtained a new life. So what if we win? So what if we lose? Qingzhu suddenly said these inexplicable words. Looking at the devastated body of the tree of God, its face was filled with boundless desolation, as if it had suddenly lost interest in everything and no longer had the slightest desire to kill. Life is like a mist or a dream, fate is born and fate is destroyed, and we are still at ease. In the future, I will no longer be bound by my original body. The world is so big that I can soar freely. At this moment, his heart was suddenly enlightened. All the haze was swept away, and the sky was clear for thousands of miles in front of him. A strange feeling began to change in his body. The light green color on his body gradually became darker, and the will of the natural order surged in his body as if he had obtained some kind of powerful power. Sheng's face stiffened, and he smiled. "Congratulations, little Qing. You've stepped into the last gate of the martial Tao. Emperor Realm?" Qingzhu looked at its own body in disbelief. The power of laws was flowing in its body, and the power of thunder and lightning began to flash with golden emperor Qi of the ninth heaven. He was originally a shape-shifted body, an existence similar to a soul, possessing the purest energy. It was much easier for him to communicate with heaven and earth than humans or monsters, so he was different from everyone else when he advanced to Great Emperor. He only felt that his body was much more honest than before, And the power was so strong that it seemed that he could communicate with heaven and earth and display infinite power with a raise of his hand.